Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Digital Dada Podcast. I'm Cecilia Maundu. I'm a broadcast journalist. I'm a digital security trainer. I work at the intersection of technology, human rights, and journalism. Currently, I'm working for Internews as a community mobilizer and a sustainability coordinator and a project called Sustain. Sustain stands for Sustaining Safety Tools with Analytic Insights and Networking. Is about creating a sustainability plan for open source tools. As we know, most of the open source tools are run by volunteers, and most of the time they depend on funding to be able to keep them afloat. So Sustain is literally creating a plan for them to be able to sustain themselves. And we are currently dealing with 6 tools teams, which is Stellar, Mailvelop, Onion Share, Bayanat, and OpenWisp and Open Archive. And today with me, we have Mailvelop CEO, Juta. Juta, welcome to the show. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, Cecilia. Thanks a lot.
Hello.
And yeah, it's an honor to be with you today. So yeah, my name is Jutta Horstmann, based in Bonn in Germany. And I have a long background in leading and scaling companies as well as in the open source community. So I've been working with various open source communities for over 20 years now, starting with the Linux usability reports that I created 20 years ago about the usability of space desktops. And after that, I moved on to work with MySQL and PostgreSQL communities on the topic of migrating databases to open source, from proprietary to open source databases. And after that, I founded my own software development company, and we built our software on an open source stack. After a couple of various tool stacks that we were using, we settled on Drupal. And we were very involved with the Drupal community for 10 years, supporting them with various means. And after this time, I moved on to lead a company called IO that might not be so known for their name, but is very much known in the open source community for the project AdBlock Plus, ad blocker that you're using in your browser and potentially also on your mobile phones. So I led that company as COO and managing director for 5 years. And I left IO last year and then took a couple of months off. And after that, I started with Mailvelop. I've been the interim CEO now since February. And with that, working very closely on the sustainability of the project. So I'm very happy that this will be the main topic for our discussion today.
Thank you so much for creating the time. And I know you've done such a fantastic job in Mailvelop. And I'm sure when you leave it better than you found it. So I'll go to my first question. Tell us a little bit about Mailvelop, its history, and the community that you're targeting with this tool. And how do you ensure their sustainability in the long term?
Very happy to. So Mailvelop is all about encrypting emails. It is a browser add-on that you can use in any browser that you like Chrome and Edge and Firefox, any that has the extension mechanism built in. And with that, you can then securely encrypt your emails with PGP using any webmail provider. So it is webmail provider agnostic. That means you can use it, for example, with Outlook.com, with Gmail, or also like in Germany, we are using web.de or GMX. All of them can be encrypted using Mailvelop. And we're doing this because our mission is to provide everyone with an easy to use, secure, and transparent tool to encrypt their email communication. So it is quite widely distributed, I have to say. Like, for example, it is, as said, integrated by all major German webmailers as their encryption offering of choice. Also, the German Federal Office for Information Security uses our technology to encrypt its own email offering. And there are internationally dozens of news outlets that suggest their sources to use Mailvelop, our solution, as their mail encryption tool of choice to ensure the confidentiality of their communications, like, for example, the Washington Post or the Financial Times. And looking at history, the development of Mailvelop started already in 2012, so 12 years ago today. And then the project quickly received funding in 2012 by the Open Tech Fund, and they were starting focusing on security audits because it's a security-related tool. So we had to make sure that the security of the programming is top-notch. And in 2014, then the cooperations with the German web mailers, led by one, one of the major providers in Germany, was started. And in 2015, then a proper company was set up. So it's Mailvelop is not only an open source project; it's also a company that is able to offer for-profit services and also software development, which was beside of the funding that we received, both from Internews as well as from the Open Tech Fund, is a key part of sustaining the project. Now, I think the one more interesting step here related to our for-profit offerings is that in 2020, we started to offer Mailvelop Business, which provides on a subscription basis a Google Workspace integration. And to your third question about what is the community that we are targeting. So they are very different communities. One is the open source community. We have a community edition that is freely available. So not only free as in speech, but also free as in beer for everybody. And I think anybody who is privacy aware and wants to make sure that their communication can't be intercepted or read is our target group here. Then we have a specific offering also of our Google Workspace integration for NGOs. So I think especially any group that is dealing with vulnerable groups and wanting to secure them, like for example, harassed women or refugees, they definitely should encrypt their email communications. And so Mailvelop is a great tool for them. Also journalists, especially in countries where the media is not free, can definitely benefit from using our tool. And then in the business area, with our business edition, we are targeting both small and medium enterprises as well as larger enterprises. And we see that there is an interest of like using the tool because it is very well integrated with Google Workspace. So any company that uses Google Workspace with Gmail for their company communications should definitely think about integrating Mailvelop in it. Then another part of our community is enterprise, because we are also offering custom development services to enterprises. And the last one is partners. So we want to partner, especially in the open source ecosystem, like integrating Mailvelop, for example, with open source groupware and cloud offerings, because there it makes sense to provide to the users an integrated, holistic offering where they can have everything they transfer across the internet in an encrypted fashion.
Thank you so much. One thing I know about Mailvelop, the user interface is quite friendly, so you don't have to struggle a lot. And for those who don't know what is encryption, encryption is about data confidentiality, is about turning what we call plain text into ciphertext, in that if anyone tries to bypass and get your information, they will not be able to understand the information. So that is what encryption is in very simple terms. So, Juta, to my next question, you have been part of the Internews Sustain project, which is about creating mechanism for open source tools to be able to sustain themselves. And you have mentioned several initiatives that Mailvelop has. So, what has been your experience so far in this project, and what has been the highlight of the whole project for you?
So collaborating with Internews was a very engaging experience because you provided us with a lot of communication, collaboration, you provided templates, we got access to great consultants, and there were also in-person and online meetings. So a lot of resources we could tap into like wrap our head around what is the right path for Mailvelop moving forward. And I think the major highlight for me was definitely working with the consultants, because they offered a broad range of experiences. Especially Sarah Rahman provided a lot of insights about developing our strategy and our business model forward. But also the other consultants that we are still currently working with, they have experiences in the topics of user research and marketing, and also business and fundraising. So a lot of experiences that definitely helped us moving forward while we are still a pretty small team.
So, as a follow up to that question, as part of the Sustain cohort, how do you view the sustainability of open source projects? And I think you've mentioned that a bit, but how do you view the sustainability of open source projects, particularly in terms of funding and community support? Because we know like most of the open source tools really rely on the community support. Most of them don't have funding, as I said previously, and the community is the backbone of these tools.
Absolutely. So yeah, sustainability of open source projects is a big problem, and it's really very dear to my heart. Not only in working with Mailvelop, I'm also a keynote speaker on that topic. So for me, sustainability means that the project has funding to continue operations for years to come. So it's not only for the next 2 or 3 months, but really that the project is able to plan for the long term and strategically. And I think this major issue is not solved about open source. And there are many key parts of the internet infrastructure that depend on open source tools that are absolutely underfunded and understaffed. And we have seen that with many major security breaks, like the Heartbleed bug in OpenSSL, or the funding projects funding problems that GNU-PG had. Also the security issues with Log4j, and now this year we saw that there was also a major attack against the XC utils library. So all of that shows that as a society, I think we need to start thinking about open source sustainability, because we depend on it, and so much depends on it. And looking at Mailvelop, Mailvelop is currently run by a very small team of 3 people and less than 2 full-time equivalents, with only 1 developer. As I said before, we now our second developer, and this will provide a bit more of sustainability to the whole project. But currently, the project is funded based on grants and a very small income from the premium offering Mailvelop Business that I mentioned before. And there is like 0 income generated from the third parties building their tools and offerings on it. Like I said, we have partnerships, or not really partnerships. We are integrated. Mailvelop is integrated in the German webmailers offerings, but this does not mean that we get any income from them. It was just a one-time integration, and that's it. So this means that if our one developer, if he would be like run over by a bus or burn out or retire or just simply move on, then the German webmailers would lose their encryption functionality, and most news outlets would lose their capability to communicate safely with their sources. And luckily, all of this did not happen yet, and it hopefully never will. But I think we definitely should not build our tools and businesses and our internet infrastructure on hopes. And this is why I'm so keen about the topic of sustainability and finding proper means that are not restricted to one specific task or feature, that allow the developers to focus on moving the product forward, and that also scale with the scaling of the complexity and the user base of the project, and that predictability.
So, cycling back to the point of community still, community is a big part of open source software. How has Mailvelop managed to keep active and a community, to keep an active community engaged and involved in their tool? And how does community involvement contribute to the sustainability of the tool?
So as a open source project, we're using the standard infrastructure, like you can find Mailvelop on GitLab, and there our community can interact with the tool. Still, it is like there's always a trade-off between community interaction and the overhead it creates. So we even employed one person to make sure that we can provide user support. So the more successful an open source project is, the more the people working on it have to move from developing the product to caring for users, caring for feature requests, communicating, community management. And in the end, these are people that are software developers. They want to create code. It is not their main interest to be community managers or provide customer support. So I think a key topic here is that open source developers and maintainers should make sure to build a good team, because, as you said, community is key for the sustainability of the project. Um, and you can leverage the community for many ways, but you need to have the resources to work with the community to keep the communication and the cooperation going.
I agree with you because sometimes we feel like when we use the community to be able to do some of the work in these tools and we don't pay them is not fair to them. You know, somebody is not rewarded for their labor. So, what advice would you give to open source developers, particularly in terms of ensuring that they're ensuring their long term sustainability? How can they proactively address sustainability challenges from the onset?
Yeah, so I think the most of the open source projects, they start with a person who has a specific topic they want to solve. It is said in the open source community, they want to like scratch their own itch, and so they create something. And this is because they love solving problems with software development. They are software developers, and when they start something like that, and they want this to be successful, they want to have this audience, their people to use this as well, then they need to be aware of the fact that their role will change over time. It will change from being a developer to potentially a fundraiser or a community manager or a business developer or a people manager. So the more success there is to the project, the more people and the more experiences will be needed, experiences that the original developer most often doesn't have and probably also doesn't want to achieve, because they are software developers. They most often they just want to focus on this work where they're good at. So my advice would be to first be clear about what you really love to do, and how much of your spare time you want to devote to that, and then also be clear about the changes to their role that will come with success. And if they are very clear about the fact that they want to stay software developers, then they need to think about building a team, and also thinking about how to finance that team, be it with funding, or with a business model, or a mix of both.
Interesting. Looking ahead, what do you envision for the future of Mailvelop? I know you're leaving, but what, like the mechanisms that you've put in place, what future do you envision for Mailvelop, especially after this project, the Sustain project, in terms of its sustainability?
Yeah. So what we learned in the last month, and what was also enabled by the funding from the Sustain project, because we had access to consultants and we could spend time on thinking about product and business strategy. This helped us a lot. Because otherwise you're just working from one feature request to the next bug and issue. But this allowed us now to really think about product and business strategy. And this means that we now start looking at email encryption. So if we want to partner, for example, with cloud providers, Mailvelop is able to also encrypt other assets. So this might be a way to like diversify in terms of product. And also that we now start focusing on partnerships because we see that our current like product offering for Google Workspace is not yet providing us with really a scalable and predictable income stream. So we need to see what are other options beyond that. Probably also moving from beyond the Google Workspace integration to integrating with other larger players, like probably exploring an Outlook option. So there are many things that we are currently looking at in terms of product and business strategy. And another topic that I think is really interesting that might help us a lot with ensuring the sustainability of the project is that there will be an upcoming regulation in Germany which provides to the users the right to encrypt. So any user starting next year will be able to request from their cloud and mail providers that they offer a very easy tool to encrypt their emails, for example. So I assume that there will be a way more extended need for cloud and mail providers to integrate a solution like Mailvelop, and this might be very helpful for the continued sustainability of the project.
Oh, that is interesting. I would want to learn more about that encryption initiative by the German government. So, as we come to the tail end of this conversation, what is the one thing that you would want funders to know? Funders who fund this open source tool, what is the one message that you have for them?
So first, it is so important that there are these funds because it is really hard to create a business model around open source software. So for now, funds and grants are the means to keep these key tools that we need for our security, for our privacy, to keep the internet running, to keep these projects alive. So what I want funders to know is that make it as easy as possible for the projects to receive and use the money, the grants that they receive. Because otherwise, a big overhead is created in terms of work and communication that draws the attention of the project maintainers from what they are really good at, from the software development, to fund keeping in touch with the grant people. So I think it is important that the overhead is kept low, and also that the funds are as little restricted as possible. Because if the funds are, for example, only for one specific feature, then very important topics like, for example, maintaining infrastructure are not funded. So the more flexibility the project has to apply the resources, the better.
I mean, that's quite interesting. When they give funding, they don't like specify it has to be like this. Let the tool owners know what is needed at this time to be able to maintain the tool. And that makes a lot of sense. So, Juta, is there anything that you feel that you left out that you would want people to know in regarding the sustainability of open source tools?
I think we touched on so many of the important topics. I just want to say thank you again. Thanks for funding us. Thanks for providing all of the support throughout the last months. And yeah, thanks for having me in this podcast.
Thank you so much for creating the time out of your busy schedule to be able to sit down for this interview. We really, really appreciate. So, that's it for today's episode. Please check out the episode, learn more about open source tool, learn more about sustainability of open source tool. And yes, look at some of the open source tools that you would want to be part of their community. You never know. There's so many things there's so many areas that you can be involved in when it comes to the issue of open source tool. So thank you so much and see you in the next episode.